The year was 2274, and Earth was no longer just a blue dot in the void, it was the heart of a fledgling interstellar civilization. Humanity had clawed its way into the stars, defying all odds, surviving against hostile alien environments and unthinkable dangers. But for all our struggles, we had never faced anything like this. They called themselves the Velar Dominion, a sprawling empire of brutal efficiency, an armada of 1,000 worlds. They did not negotiate. They did not warn. They conquered. The sky above Earth darkened as their warships blotted out the sun, their colossal dreadnoughts floating with the ominous weight of inevitability. The message was simple, broadcast across every screen, every frequency. Kneel, and you may serve. Resist, and you will be erased. The United Terran Confederation scrambled. Politicians bickered. Generals whispered of hopelessness. Earth's defenses were formidable, but nothing compared to the technological supremacy of the Velar. Their forces had crushed entire empires in weeks. Humanity's fleets, powerful by our own standards, were insignificant in the face of such a behemoth. And yet, kneeling was never an option. Aboard the U.T.C. warspite, Admiral Elias Grayson stood unmoving as the broadcast played in the dimly lit war room. The faces of his officers were pale, their knuckles white as they clenched their fists. Some were afraid. Others were furious. But Grayson? He was calculating. "They think we'll bow," he muttered, his gravelly voice cutting through the silence. "They think they can break us before we even fight." Across the room, Colonel Ava Renfield of the Terran Special Forces folded her arms. "That won't happen. Not while we still have breath." The Velar had given them one cycle, roughly 6 Terran days, to surrender. But everyone in that room knew the truth: surrender wasn't survival. It was servitude. It was extinction under another name. The news spread across the planet like wildfire. Some called for peace, for negotiation, but the reality was clear: we had nothing to offer that the Velar couldn't take by force. Across Earth and the outer colonies, the response was not despair, but defiance. Civilian engineers worked in double shifts to convert industrial facilities into war factories. Scientists scrambled to finish half-tested experimental weapons. Fleets mobilized, soldiers drilled, and civilians prepared for the worst. It was in the streets of New Geneva where the true spirit of humanity showed itself. Thousands, then millions, gathered, holding up banners, scrawling messages on walls, broadcasting across the void. "We do not kneel." Admiral Grayson stood aboard the warspite's bridge as the first wave of Velar warships entered the solar system, their formation perfect, their weapons glowing with eerie, unnatural power. The Dominion did not hesitate. They did not expect resistance to matter. Grayson exhaled, his gaze sharp. "They came all this way expecting submission," he murmured. "Let's teach them disappointment." From the dark void beyond Mars, hidden among the asteroid belt, the first wave of humanity's response came to life. Frigates and cruisers, silent and invisible, emerged from their camouflage, unleashing the first coordinated barrage. Velar ships flared as shields took the brunt of the attack, but the message was clear. Earth was not surrendering. The first battle for humanity's survival had begun. And if the Velar thought we would simply fall in line, they had made a terrible mistake. "We do not kneel." The void of space was set ablaze as humanity's opening salvo slammed into the Velar formation. Torpedoes streaked through the blackness, railgun slugs shattered against shields, and experimental plasma lances carved through the vacuum, seeking their mark. The Velar did not flinch. Their fleet, disciplined and precise, shifted formations within seconds. Their response came not in the form of panic or retreat, but brutal retaliation. Admiral Grayson's eyes narrowed. The warspite's command center was a flurry of controlled chaos. Officers barked orders, data streams flooded the screens, and a massive holographic display projected the battle unfolding before them. "Their shields are holding," Lieutenant Carson reported, his voice tight with tension. "Damage to their front lines is negligible." Grayson wasn't surprised. Humanity's weapons were powerful, but the Velar had fought for centuries, conquering species far older and more advanced than us. If brute force was all it took, someone would have stopped them long ago. But humanity had something the Velar weren't ready for: adaptation. "Relay the signal," Grayson ordered. "Phase 2 is a go." Across the battlefield, a second wave of Terran ships surged forward. Not warships, freighters. Civilian vessels repurposed for battle, packed with decoys, electronic warfare suites, and something far worse, pulse disruptors. As the freighters reached proximity, they detonated their payloads. Invisible waves of energy rippled outward, washing over the Velar armada. The effect was instant. Shields flickered. Targeting systems glitched. The Velar's perfect coordination stuttered, ****. That was the opening the fleet needed. The Warspite and its escorts surged forward, their weapons cutting through weakened defenses. Smaller Velar vessels exploded, their hulls torn apart by railgun slugs and missile barrages. For the first time, the invincible conquerors bled. But victories in war are never one-sided. The Velar adapted. Fast. Their dreadnoughts repositioned, unleashing a counterattack of terrifying precision. Bright lances of violet energy carved through Terran ships like paper, frigates vanished in bursts of fire, battleships crumbled under relentless bombardment. We're losing too many, the voice shouted over the comms. Grayson gritted his teeth. He knew they couldn't win a drawn-out engagement. The Velar had numbers and firepower, Earth had moments. All ships, fall back to defensive positions near Luna Base, he commanded. We regroup and hit them again on our terms, The fleet disengaged, retreating toward the moon's defensive line, luring the Velar into a more favorable position. In the shadows of Earth, another battle was being fought. On the surface, Colonel Ava Renfield led a team of operatives into one of humanity's last, most desperate gambits. Beneath the UTC military complex in New Geneva, hidden far from the public eye, lay Project Gungnir, a prototype weapons system so dangerous it had never been tested. If humanity had any chance at survival, this would be it. Renfield surveyed the underground lab, where scientists and engineers worked frantically. The air smelled of burning metal and desperation. "Are we ready?" she asked. Dr. Lennox, the lead scientist, wiped sweat from his brow. Ready is a relative term. He gestured to the massive chamber behind him, where a sleek, angular construct hummed ominously. "We can fire it once. Maybe twice. But if this doesn't work..." "It'll work," Renfield said. It had to. Above them, the Velar fleet advanced toward Earth, their forces regrouping for the final blow. The clock was ticking. The true battle was about to begin. The void above Earth burned with the fury of war. The Velar, once untouchable conquerors, had been bloodied. But they were far from beaten. Their second wave came like a hammer. Sleek, predatory warships surged forward, their lances of violet energy cutting deep into Terran defenses. One by one, human ships vanished into fire and wreckage. On the bridge of the Warspite, Admiral Grayson gripped the console as the ship trembled under the impact of enemy fire. A nearby escort frigate, the Dauntless, erupted in a silent explosion, debris scattering into the abyss. Humanity was reaching its breaking point. "Shields at 23%, shouted Lieutenant Carson. "Hull integrity failing on multiple ships." Grayson exhaled sharply. He had known from the start that this wasn't a battle they could win, not in the conventional sense. But the longer they fought, the more the Velar learned to respect one undeniable fact. Humanity refused to die quietly. "Fall back to the lunar defensive grid," Grayson commanded. "We give Renfield time, whatever it takes." As the Terran fleet retreated, the Velar pursued, their ships carving through resistance with ruthless precision. They were closing in. New Geneva, Earth. Deep beneath the UTC military complex, Colonel Ava Renfield stood before the massive construct that could decide humanity's fate, Project Gungnir. The room pulsed with energy as the prototype weapon hummed to life. Suspended within the chamber was a sleek, black spear-like structure, its surface lined with dark matter destabilizers, a weapon designed not just to destroy ships, but to unravel them. Dr. Lennox's voice was hoarse from shouting over the alarms. "The system is online, but we have a problem." Renfield turned, her heart pounding. "What kind of problem?" "The power grid, it can't handle a second shot. We fire this once, and the entire complex goes dark." Silence hung between them. One shot. It had to count. Renfield tapped her calm, "Grayson, we're ready to fire, but we need a clear shot." The Admiral's voice was strained but firm. "We'll make one. #### Lunar Defense Line." The battle had turned desperate. The Velar flagship, a dreadnought the size of a city, advanced toward Earth, its weapons charging for what would be a planet-killing strike. And that was exactly what Grayson needed. "All remaining ships," he ordered, "focus fire on the flagship's shields. We open a hole, just enough for Gungnir." The order was a death sentence for many. But no one hesitated. Destroyers and cruisers surged forward, unloading everything they had. Missiles, plasma bursts, kinetic rounds, it was chaos incarnate. The Velar's shields flared under the relentless assault, their defenses strained. "Almost there," Carson shouted. Then, the Velar retaliated. Ship after ship fell, the Indomitable was torn in half. The Resolute detonated in a chain reaction. The Warspite's hull groaned as critical systems failed. But in the heart of the chaos, the Velar flagship's shields flickered. And then they failed. Grayson seized the moment. Renfield, now, #### New Geneva, Earth. Colonel Renfield slammed her palm onto the control panel. "Gungnir, fire." A deep hum resonated through the chamber. The construct surged with power, and then a beam of pure annihilation erupted from Earth's surface. It tore through the sky, through the atmosphere, and into the void, directly toward the Velar flagship. The beam struck. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then, the Velar dreadnought twisted, warped, and collapsed inward, folding into itself like a dying star. The dark matter destabilizers ripped it apart at the molecular level. The flagship ceased to exist. And for the first time in recorded history, **** the Velar fleet hesitated, ****. For the first time ever, ****, the Conquerors knew fear, ****. The tide had turned. Humanity was not beaten yet. The void above Earth was eerily silent in the wake of the impossible. Where once the Velar flagship had loomed, a symbol of their dominance, it was now nothing. Torn apart by forces they did not yet understand, reduced to cosmic dust by human ingenuity and desperation. For the first time in their long, brutal history, the Velar fleet hesitated. On the bridge of the Warspite, Admiral Grayson leaned heavily against the command console, his uniform stained with sweat and blood. Sparks flickered from damaged panels, alarms blared warnings of failing systems, and yet they had done it. "They're regrouping," Lieutenant Carson said, his voice laced with disbelief. "They're actually pulling back." Grayson's sharp eyes flicked to the tactical display. The Velar fleet, once an unshakable wall of death, had fractured. Some ships had already begun to reposition defensively, others hesitated as if awaiting new orders. This was their moment. If humanity was to survive, they had to strike now. Grayson activated the fleet-wide comms. Every ship, every soldier, every soul fighting for their home heard his voice. "This is Admiral Elias Grayson of the United Terran Confederation," he began, his tone unwavering. "We stand where others have fallen. We fight when others surrender. And today, ***, we prove that humanity will never kneel, ***. The response was immediate. Earth's forces surged forward. Warships, damaged and burning, refused to break, fighters weaved between Velar cruisers, punching above their weight, ground-based defenses on the Moon and Earth launched another wave of missiles and railgun slugs. Even the civilians, miners from the belt, cargo pilots, ex-mercenaries, joined the fight, they armed whatever they had, using asteroid tugs to slam debris into enemy ships, disrupting formations with suicidal precision. This was not just war. This was survival. ### New Geneva, Earth. In the depths of the UTC military complex, Project Gungnir's core was dark. The weapon had worked, but at a cost. The power grid was fried, and the complex was running on emergency backups. Colonel Ava Renfield wiped sweat from her brow as she watched the battle unfold on a flickering monitor. "The Velar won't back down forever," Dr. Lennox muttered. "They're just recalculating." Renfield clenched her jaw. He was right. The Velar were ruthless, but they weren't stupid. They had miscalculated once, assuming humanity would surrender. They wouldn't make the same mistake again. She tapped into the comms. "Grayson, what's the status up there? Good news? We've got them on their heels. Bad news? We don't have the firepower to finish this." Renfield exhaled sharply. A tactical victory meant nothing if the Velar regrouped and returned stronger. "What if we took the fight to them?" she asked. Silence. Then, "I'm listening." ### above Luna. Grayson's mind raced. Renfield was right. Humanity had never won wars by playing defense. We were not the strongest, nor the most advanced. But we were unpredictable. "We take the fight to them," he repeated, nodding slowly. "We go after their command ships, force them into chaos." A risky move. A desperate move. But what other choice did they have? He turned to Carson. "Get me fleet-wide comms again." A second transmission echoed across the battered but unbowed Terran fleet. "All ships, prepare for an offensive push. Fighters, engage their flanks. Capital ships, ***, we are punching a hole straight through their command line, ***. There was no hesitation. The final battle had begun. ### Velar command vessel, high orbit. Within the cold, sterile halls of the Velar command dreadnought, Supreme Strategist Zalos observed the unfolding battle with an expression unreadable to most. For centuries, his people had crushed opposition with flawless execution. Wars lasted days, sometimes hours. The Velar were precise, overwhelming, invincible. Yet now, ***, they hesitated, ***. Not because of fear. Not because of weakness. Because for the first time in Velar history, they had encountered an enemy that would rather die than submit. Zalos' second-in-command, a towering figure clad in shimmering command robes, turned to him. "They are reckless. Their weapons are crude. Their strategy is chaotic." Zalos did not look away from the battle. "And yet, they are still here." A pause. Then, "Sir, shall we initiate planetary bombardment?" Silence stretched. The weight of that decision loomed. Destroying Earth would end the war. But it would also send a message. To every species watching. To every empire who had once feared Velar supremacy. That the Dominion had been challenged. That the Dominion had been afraid. Zalos tightened his grip behind his back. No, they could not allow this to stand. "Deploy reinforcements," he said at last, his voice cold. "And crush them." The battlefield above Earth was a graveyard of fire and wreckage. Ships, Terran and Velar alike, floated as lifeless husks, their burning hulls casting eerie glows across the void. Humanity had struck first, had defied the inevitable, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed they had turned the tide. But the Velar were not broken. They were angry. From the depths of hyperspace, a second Velar armada emerged. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, and fighter swarms poured into the system like a tidal wave. The newly arrived fleet dwarfed the first, their numbers stretching across the darkness in a show of overwhelming force. On the bridge of the Warspite, Admiral Grayson felt the weight of inevitability press down on him. "They brought in reinforcements," Carson whispered, his face pale. "No," Grayson corrected. "They brought in an extermination force." The Velar had learned their lesson. No prolonged battles. No arrogance. No mercy. They were here to end humanity. And they had the numbers to do it. #### Earth's final stand. Colonel Renfield stood atop New Geneva's last remaining command tower, watching the sky. The Velar reinforcements loomed above, preparing for orbital bombardment. They weren't just targeting military installations anymore. They were targeting everything. "Dr. Lennox," she barked into her comm, "what's the status on Gungnir?" "Fried. That first shot drained everything. We need at least 12 hours to recharge it." They didn't have 12 minutes. Renfield clenched her fists. They had to hold. Somehow. "Then we fight with what we have," she said. Across the planet, Earth's defenders prepared for the last battle. Every city became a fortress. Every street a battlefield. Every human a soldier. Orbital defense cannons tracked incoming ships. Civilians picked up weapons they had never trained to use, hackers scrambled to disrupt Velar targeting systems, while underground bunkers filled with families huddled together in the darkness. This was not just war anymore. This was survival. #### The last push. Grayson knew they couldn't fight the Velar head-on. They had to break their command structure. He pointed at the Velar flagship, a monstrous, silver-hulled dreadnought that coordinated the assault. "If we take that out," he said, "we buy Earth time." But it was suicide. The Terran fleet was battered, outnumbered, barely holding together. But as he looked at his crew, at the exhausted faces of men and women who had fought beyond reason, he knew none of them would back down. "All ships, this is Grayson, his voice carried across what remained of the fleet. "I won't lie to you. This is it. If we lose, there won't be a tomorrow. But I'll be damned if we let these bastards think they can wipe us out without a fight." Silence. Then, across the comms, cheers, Earth's fleet burned its engines at maximum, every remaining warship focusing on one target. The Velar were not ready for this kind of madness. Terran ships weaved through the enemy formation, dodging, ramming, self-destructing, doing whatever it took to clear a path to the command dreadnought. The Warspite led the charge, railguns blazing. Fighters swarmed ahead, drawing fire. The Velar responded with brutal efficiency, but for every human ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. This wasn't war. This was defiance. And then they broke through. The Velar flagship loomed before them, its shields flaring under relentless fire. Grayson saw the opening. "All remaining ships, target the flagship's engines. We bring this bastard down." A final barrage. A last, desperate act. Missiles, plasma, kinetic slugs, all of it rained down on the Velar dreadnought in a singular, unified strike. And then it happened. The Velar command ship exploded. For the second time in history, the Velar armada hesitated. For the second time, they knew fear. But would it be enough? As the remnants of the Terran fleet drifted, battered and bleeding, the final decision fell to the Velar. Would they press the attack? Would they burn Earth to ash? Or had humanity proven their worth? Above the ruins of a dying battle, the galaxy held its breath. The void above Earth was filled with fire and silence. The Velar dreadnought was gone, shattered by human defiance, but even in its absence, the enemy armada still vastly outnumbered the battered remnants of Earth's fleet. The Terran ships drifted in space, their weapons nearly depleted, their hulls scarred and broken. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. On the bridge of the Warspite, Admiral Grayson stood, his breathing heavy, his uniform stained with blood and soot. The tactical display showed the grim reality. the Velar still had the numbers to wipe humanity from existence. And yet, they hadn't fired, Not yet. Hashtag Velar command ship, aboard the Vengeance of Zalos. Within the cold, metallic halls of the Velar command vessel, Supreme Strategist Zalos watched the battle unfold through an expansive holodisplay. He was silent, his sharp eyes locked onto the smoldering remains of his flagship. His fleet still had full capability to destroy Earth, to erase this species from the stars forever. But something held him back. They should not have lasted this long. Humanity was weaker, their weapons were primitive, their tactics were chaotic. Yet here they were, standing, His second-in-command, Vralik, growled, his mandibles clicking in irritation. We should finish them. Their fleet is crippled. Earth's defenses are failing. Zalos did not respond. A species that refused to kneel. A species that, against all logic, had made them hesitate, Across the Velar fleet, officers awaited his command. One word, and Earth would be glass. But if they did this, if they wiped out humanity completely, what message would it send? To every empire in the galaxy? To every species watching from the shadows? The mighty Velar Dominion had been forced to call in reinforcements. The unbreakable conquerors had been challenged. Zalos' grip tightened behind his back. If he destroyed them now, it would be out of fear. And the Velar could not be seen as afraid. Slowly, the Supreme Strategist turned to Vralik. Open a channel. Hashtag the unexpected transmission. On the Warspite, the bridge crew froze as a Velar transmission request appeared on screen. The entire room went silent. Grayson exchanged a look with Carson, then took a deep breath. Put it through. A moment later, the cold, calculating face of Supreme Strategist Zalos filled the holoscreen. His violet, pupilless eyes studied Grayson with an unreadable expression. You are beaten, Zalos said. His voice was calm. Measured. Grayson squared his shoulders. If we were beaten, you wouldn't be talking. A flicker of something, perhaps amusement, perhaps respect, crossed Zalos' face. The Velar do not waste resources on exterminating the weak, Zalos said. You should not have survived this long. And yet, here you stand. He leaned forward slightly. Explain. Grayson exhaled. He could feel every officer on the bridge staring at him, hanging on his next words. We don't stop, Grayson said simply. We don't surrender. We don't kneel. His voice hardened. If you kill us today, our children will rise to fight you tomorrow. If you glass Earth, the survivors will crawl out of the ashes to make you bleed. And if you wipe out every last one of us, the galaxy will remember that we, mere humans, made you hesitate, Silence. Zalos stared at him. Then, he did something no one expected, He laughed. It was a quiet sound, more of a sharp exhale, but it was unmistakable. You have spirit, Zalos admitted. More than I expected from your kind. Grayson's grip on the console tightened. Are you here to admire us, or to finish what you started? Zalos regarded him for a long moment. Then he spoke. No, not today. Grayson's eyes narrowed. Meaning? Zalos straightened. Meaning that if we wipe you out now, we prove to the galaxy that we were afraid of you. His voice grew cold. And we are afraid of no one. The transmission cut out. And then, the impossible happened, The Velar fleet began to retreat. One by one, their ships turned away from Earth's burning skies. They did not flee. They did not scatter. They simply left. Humanity had not won. But they had survived. And that was victory enough. The skies above Earth were still. The chaos of battle had faded, leaving behind the debris of destruction, broken ships, drifting wreckage, the haunting silence of a war fought to the bitter end. In the wake of the retreating Velar, the world was left to pick up the pieces. Earth's forces had endured. They had defied the odds, and though the war was not truly over, the galaxy had seen humanity's might. The Velar had never faced anything like it. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders convened. From the ashes of their shattered defenses, they forged a new resolve. Earth had become the symbol of resilience, a beacon that would not be extinguished. Humanity would rebuild. And this time, they would be ready. ####The aftermath, a reckoning. In the wake of the battle, human forces, though bruised, were far from defeated. Across the shattered remnants of the fleet, engineers worked tirelessly to patch together broken ships, to bring the wounded back into fighting shape. Even civilian industries, having tasted the horrors of war, shifted their focus to defense. Every inch of Earth and its colonies was fortified. Humanity had tasted the edge of extinction, and they would never forget. Colonel Ava Renfield stood on the surface of New Geneva, watching as massive construction ships unloaded the raw materials for the reconstruction of Earth's orbital defenses. The planet's scars were still fresh, but there was a new energy in the air, ***, the energy of survivors, ***. We may not have won this war, she said to Dr. Lennox, who stood beside her, the vastness of space stretching before them. But we've sent a message. Lennox nodded. And I think the Velar got it loud and clear. Renfield's gaze was steady, as it had been in the midst of the battle. The galaxy won't forget what happened here. Humanity may be small, but we are not weak. ###the Galactic Ripple. Across the galaxy, word of humanity's defiance spread like wildfire. Empires once unchallenged began to look at the Terran Republic with new eyes. The Velar had retreated, but their failure had sent ripples through the stars. Humanity was no longer just a backwater species, they had shown their teeth, and the galaxy had felt it. The peaceful worlds, the ones that had long existed in the shadows of the more powerful empires, saw in humanity a spark. The underdog. The fighter. And they too began to rise. In the distant reaches of the galaxy, even the most powerful empires paused their agendas to consider what had happened. The Velar, ***, the great conquerors ***, had been forced to retreat by a species they had deemed beneath them. Perhaps it was time to rethink the balance of power. ###, the rise of a new alliance. As humanity rebuilt, it did so with a new purpose. No longer would Earth stand alone. The scars of war had not only healed the Terran spirit but had awakened something greater, unity. Across the stars, former rivals, former enemies, saw the potential in the human spirit. The remnants of the old human colonies, the rogue factions, and even the once aloof alien species that had watched from the sidelines, all began to rally together. They did not rally for Earth. They rallied for survival. It was the beginning of something new, a galactic coalition, a league of nations bound by one fundamental truth: the galaxy had underestimated humanity once. No one would make that mistake again. ###, the road ahead. The war was not over. The Velar would likely return. And many other threats loomed in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. But humanity had learned something priceless in the face of overwhelming odds: they were capable of far more than they had ever believed. On Earth, on Luna, and across the stars, humans gathered to prepare for the future. New technology, new alliances, and new strategies were being developed, no longer just to defend, but to take the fight to their enemies. Admiral Grayson stood on the bridge of the Warspite, watching as the first rebuilt ships began to leave Earth's orbit, bound for the frontier. There was still much work to be done, but for the first time in his life, Grayson felt something he had never known: hope. Humanity had refused to bow to the Galactic Overlords. They had faced extinction, and had risen above it. Now, they would carve out their place in the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. As he looked out at the stars, Grayson knew the galaxy was watching. And it would never forget the day humanity stood against the Velar. the day we refused to bow to the Galactic Overlords.